Well, I got a couple things to play with here. I got an Outlaw caliper and another rotor sitting over here sent by Dave at FutoFab over in New Hampshire. He now has fishes on Rats and Fish, Scott Fisher, fishart.com. Anyway, he has his oil drop 521 now, and so he wants a 5-lug brake option. So basically, I'm playing with a few things here. Now, I've done a little fitting already, and I know that I can get the nut on here if the seal, if the back of this hub is basically pretty much even with the rise, God, head's not in the game today. Anyway, the boss on the bottom here of the spindle. So anyway, this is about 7.5 from the bearing to the top of the seal here. It's about 7.5 millimeters. Okay, so I took a spacer. It is just a hair over 8 millimeters. I'm going to put that on there, and this isn't, no, this is precision at this point, but it's just a matter for testing fit. So here is, these are the same bearings that the hard body uses. So it's on there loose. I don't have the spacer in it. I'll just have to make sure that I tighten it down enough that it sucks up flat there. So see that wobble there? I'll just tighten it up enough that it no longer wobbles. And I do have plenty of room there for the cotter pin to go in. So now what I can do is take a couple measurements and get an idea here. There's two choices. Basically, this is the caliper. Okay. 11 3/4, I believe. So for where that caliper is sitting right now, and I've got a piece of steel bolted to the face of the spindle, and the caliper is clamped to the backside of it. So that would be like having a flat bracket on there, and thickness of that bracket would not matter, okay, at that point. But what that does is that means that the caliper, or the rotor, is going to be sitting about there. And I need to take a look. That's about 5/8 of an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, which wouldn't be too bad. That means that the adapter here, I could basically get maybe 3/4 inch plate, you know, aluminum or whatever, and cut the adapter out of that, or have them cut or whatever. And that would keep this bracket nice and simple. Also, by keeping it back this way, that kind of distance, it also seems to leave, we'll do some measuring here and see what I come up with, but I'm hoping it leaves enough for a 3/8 inch bracket back here. Okay. So let's see here. This, from here to here, I want to stay fairly parallel with the plane there, and then I want to rock it back and forth to make sure I'm even, and it's basically 55 millimeters. It's 55.07. We're going to call it 55. The rotor is 21, okay? So where'd my pencil go? We've got 55 millimeters of space to play in. We've got 21 of that taken up by the rotor. Okay, that leaves us 34 millimeters to play with. Okay, now 3/8 of an inch plate. Let's see here. This is a piece that would be laser cut. That's 9.3, 9.31, 9.32. Let's make it 9.3 for now. Well, let's make it 9.4. That's 35, that's 6. That's going to make it 4. That's going to make it 24.6. Hopefully my math's right. 34 minus 9.4 equals 24.6. So we've got 24.6 millimeters left there. Now we need some clearance in that stuff. So let's see. 3/4 is 19 millimeters. Okay. So I was eyeballing that at roughly 3/4. Let's say it is 3/4. That's 19. That still leaves us 6 millimeters of space in there. Okay. So I like that. That's 3 millimeters. That's a little over 1/8 of an inch on each side to play with. So I can do 3/8 inch plate, and I can do somewhere in the ballpark a 3/4 inch plate over here. I'll have to figure that up a little bit more closely. So I can take these measurements now and go play in CAD and see what I come up with. We'll get a little bit different perspective here. This is what I'm talking about with it being flush with the boss there at the bottom. There's just a little gap in there. See it at the bottom there? So it's pretty close. You can see from where the pads are at that I easily have another 1/8 of an inch, you know, right here, because this is a 1/4 inch plate. I could easily come out another 1/8 of an inch and still clear the rotor easily. And so then let's see here, and that's where we're sitting with the hole. Perfect. Now this is the shorter castle nut that I use in some of the other projects and stuff like that. So okay, so here's the idea. Here's what I'm looking at. You know, okay, this is what the spacer looks like typically. Okay, so if I take this off, they use the same bearing. Okay, so that's like that. Now what I need to do is I need to cut the back there down to the 8 millimeters. I need to take 2 or 3 millimeters off there because I think it's about 12 right now. So what that'll do is that'll go on there, but it'll be a good bit shorter. Okay, and that'll get the bearing set where it's supposed to be. And I'll double check the measurements. Well, let's see here. We can tell right now. I want to make sure that the bearing doesn't bottom out. Okay. And if I bring this in here to, I can see the whole hole. Yeah, so I'm nowhere close to having the bearing bottomed out. So that's good. That's one of those other things to kind of check on. When you put it on a hard body hub, something like that, it's a little on the long side, and guys crank these down extra hard to get the cotter in. Well, that loads the bearing up too tight and kills the bearings prematurely. So anyway, looking good. The easiest way to do some of the rest of the measurements here and that stuff will be to put it in CAD and do that. And I can also take a few measurements here. Actually, if I look this up online, chances are good the measurements are already there. I just got to print them off. That tells me how far it is, and it makes it even easier because it tells me what radius this is on, you know. So then I can set that radius from the center here with the rotor I have. I'll see if I can explain that a little later when I got something more to look at. Just like this is the stock Toyota rotor. That gives you an idea what it's moving up to. Okay, and so you can see what I did is I basically took one of the test adapters that I use for the hard body upgrade, the other 521 disc brake upgrade using hard body stuff or 720 stuff, and I cut it down here to the 8 millimeters. And what that does is that puts the seal just real close to the back here. But there's enough room for the seal there, and it looks like everything's going to fit. And what that does is it keeps me from having to modify the hub. Okay, because the other option would be as if I had to have more space there, I could cut the shelf in here and push that inner bearing race in further and buy more room for the seal. I could also do the same thing out here in order to get the nut on and still get the cotter bolt in. But the way it's looking and lining up right now, I'm not going to have to do any of that, so there won't be any hub modifications. So it's looking pretty simple. Not exactly sure that means it's going to be easy, but I think I can take the dimensions and most of this stuff I can just I can create in CAD. So especially since I already have the 521 spindle drawn, so that's what I'm hoping. We'll see.